Good evening, this is Mr. Wintermelon. After learning about trophic level and food chain, in this video, you will learn about ecological primates. So by the end of this lesson, you should be able to describe and interpret primates of numbers and biomass. So you can see there are two types of ecological primates. So ecological primates is a scaled representation of the relationship of different organisms in different trophic level. As mentioned, there are two types, primate of biomass and primates of numbers. For primates of biomass is the comparison of the dry mass of organisms in each trophic level. You really do not need to know how the scientists get the data for primate of biomass, but if you know how, then you'll find that, hey, it's actually quite cool. Because what they did was, let's say you want to know the biomass of a population of rabbits in a grassland. What you do is you go and find 10 volunteers. So you ask the rabbit to volunteer. Then you put them in an oven and dry the rabbit in the oven. So you are only left with the dry mass of the rabbit that you have put in oven. Then you go and measure them. So after you got the dry mass of, let's say, 10 rabbit, then you estimate or you go and count the number of rabbit inside the grassland, and you will get the estimated biomass of the rabbit population. Yeah, so hashtag cruelty. As for primate of number, it is just the numbers of organisms in each trophic level. So you just go and count the number of rabbits in the grassland. That's about it. For primates of biomass, the biomass of lower trophic level will always be more than that of the higher trophic level. This is to ensure that there are sufficient food or energy to support the higher trophic level. So imagine if the amount of grass is very little, you wouldn't have enough grass to support all the rabbit because only 10% of the energy that was made by the grass is being passed on to the herbivore. So as mentioned, each level represents the total dry mass of the whole population. Primate of biomass, all of them will look the same and all of them will look like this. The producer will have the greatest biomass. So example of producer are like your grass, your plant, your tree. Then you have your herbivore. For example, rabbit, aphids, and giraffe. Rabbit eat the grass, aphids suck on the plant sap, giraffe will eat the leaf on the tree. Then you have your secondary consumer. Your herbivore is the primary consumer. So basically, they are animals that hunt the herbivore, such as snake, ladybug that hunt the aphids, and lion that hunt the giraffe. Then lastly, you have those animals that eat the secondary consumer, and they are the tertiary consumer. For example, eagle will eat the snake, birds will eat the ladybug. Then you might be wondering, what kind of animal actually eat a lion? Is it another lion? It can't be, because if it's another lion, it shouldn't be another trophic level, same species. So it turns out, on the body of lion, there might be lice. So louse, which is a singular for lice, they are parasite. That means they will suck the blood of lion and obtaining nutrients from the blood. So they are considered an organism that is feeding on the lion. So that's about it for primate of biomass. It's pretty straightforward. For the grass, you have a lot of grass more than the rabbit. That's why the biomass is more than the rabbit. For the plant, even though the number is less than the aphids, but a large gigantic plant compared to the aphids, its biomass is more than the aphids. As for tree, you need a large tree to be able to support the giraffe, to provide it with enough leaf for the giraffe to survive. That's why the biomass is more. But regardless, for a primate of biomass, If the lower trophic level is more narrow than the higher trophic, the whole pyramid will collapse because there's just not enough food for the next trophic level. So if you do not have enough plant to support the herbivore will run out of food, then the herbivore will die. So to maintain the whole population of the ecosystem, the biomass of the lower trophic level must be wider than that of the higher trophic level. For pyramid of numbers, it is based on the number of population of the species. So the width of each trophic level varies from pyramid to pyramid. So what do I mean? So let's take the previous three example. We have grass, rabbit, and snake. So grass, there are more grass than rabbit, so the number of grass is more than rabbit. Snake, you have lesser snake than rabbit, and eagle, you have even lesser eagle than snake. So this is the first type of pyramid. It looks similar to pyramid of biomass. So let's look at something that is different. For the case of aphids and plant, you will have one plant, but you will have a lot of aphids. The number of aphids on a plant is definitely more than one. So there's a population of aphids that's on the plant, that's feeding on the plant, but the plant being large enough to support that number of aphids. The rest of the pyramid of number will be the same. Ladybug and bird, the number gets lesser and lesser because you need the lower number to support the higher trophic level since energy get lost to the surrounding. So now let's take a look at the last example, which is the tree. So you have one tree that you can support a few giraffe, and a few giraffe, it can support a lesser number of lion. But on the lion itself, it can have many parasites. So the louse population will be longer. So the louse population will be more than the number of lion. So pyramid of number, it varies. But what you should take note is if the producer is a lot larger than the herbivore, then the population of the plant will be lesser. But the biomass is still more than the herbivore. And the other thing to take note is if you have a parasite, the parasite, because it is so small, the population of it will be larger than its host. So the width of it on the pyramid of number will be longer than that of its host. Lastly, on how to draw biological pyramid. So let's take, for example, we have 2 snakes, 15 bats, 74 beetles, and 1 banana plant. In the rare event whereby they require you to draw on a piece of graph paper, the first thing you should do is to indicate your scale. For example, 10 blocks is equals to 20 organisms. Your scale will change according to the number that you have. So in this case, 1 block will be equals to 2 organisms. For the case of banana plant, there's only 1, so it's not even 1 single block. So you can just use 1 line to represent the 1 banana plant. 74 beetles, 74 divided by 2, I will get 37. So I will draw 37 block to represent the 74 beetles. 15 bats, it will be around 7 to 8 block. So roughly draw that. And finally 2 snakes. 2 snakes will just be 1 block. And after you draw the pyramid of number, remember to label them. For the banana plant, you have to label it outside. For the rest, you can label it inside. And for the snake, because it's too narrow for you to label it inside, label it outside as well. So that is how you draw biological pyramid if they require you to draw on a grid. If not, you can just agar-agar, just make sure that the scale makes sense. Like for example, if you have 1 banana plant, the 1 plant should not be more than the number of beetles. and that's about it.